Thank you to everyone for being here. My name is Craig Linton. I'm the co-founder of Thread Fundraising and joined by my colleagues Amy and Philippa today to help out. And we're here to share the results of our AI versus human written thank you letters research project. And I hope you all enjoyed taking part in the survey and seeing what results you did. It'd be great in the chat if you could just introduce yourself and maybe say what organisation you're from and did you actually do the survey? And if so, how well did you do it spotting the AI? Be really interested to hear where you are joining us from and how you found things. So before I get into the presentation, I was going to start with a quick poll because I just thought it'd be interesting to see how you think the results were. So do you think people were generally better than random, about the same as random, or worse than random? And how did people rate the AI letters versus the human written ones? Was it lower, about the same, higher? Okay, so a real mix. Thanks everyone for sharing. Interesting to see. Oh, gold star, Julia, for the 100%. And thanks, Rebecca, for taking part by your colleague. Yeah, thanks, Karen. Yeah, there's a few sitting on the fence and things where it was quite hard to spot, and I'll talk through some of that as well as we go through. So how did people rate AI letters? Most people, so only 8% think higher, which is interesting, and then split between the other two. And then same as random came out top, but a bit more across the three options on that. So I'll end the poll there. So I'll share the results just so you can see that. And then I'll just check my screen is shared. And then let me know if you can't see my screen. And we'll crack on and let's see if you were right. When I can get my PowerPoint right. So I wanted to start really by just saying a big thank you to everyone who shared their thank you letters. There was 8 charities who put their head above the parapet really, and it's never easy sharing and being judged by your peers. And I really do appreciate that they did come forward and shared, and everyone who I approached and asked, they were chosen because I know they're really passionate fundraisers who care about their supporters, and do their best by supporters and really buy into the ethos of relationship fundraising and great stewardship and everything. So about the survey, as you know, we're testing AI versus human thank yous, and I guess my own experience, I always tell the story of 3 hospice donations I made in the course of a year. The first one was for a family acquaintance who I hadn't seen for many years, and I can't remember. I sent like a £50 donation. The second one was in memory of the wife of one of my best friends, who died, tragically young, in her early 40s, 3 children, and made a couple of £100 donation, and probably would have done anything for that charity at the time in her memory and to help, because her husband was so grateful for the care that he received. And then the final one, sadly, was for my own dad, and we had amazing care at our local hospice, and couldn't sing their praises high enough, and I made my biggest ever single donation to a charity to say thank you. And the reason for telling you that is because what happened next was quite sad, really, because I basically got the same thank you letter from all 3 hospices, all very generic. No one really followed up. No one really got in touch and shared any more information. It was just quite an underwhelming experience, really. And the 2 hospices my friends wife one and one of my dad, they probably lost thousands of potential pounds of income by not really thanking us well and thanking us properly. And this is backed up by mystery shopping. I do one of the exercises I love doing with clients and in training is around giving everyone £10, say, to send to a charity to see what happens next. And again, the results are always slightly underwhelming, and some people don't even get a thank you, or they just get an online thank you and no offline, etc. And again, just a missed opportunity is the feeling. And then I've been seeing a lot of stuff online around AI, and there seems to be two very distinct camps. AI is just slop. It's, noise. It's, no help to anyone really, and we can ignore it. Versus, actually, it's this new superpower for fundraisers, and it's going to change everything, and it's incredible. So there's more nuance to it, that I think, than perhaps is the polarized view. Like so much in society now, everything's black and white, and I think the reality is probably somewhat more grey. And there's lots of emotion around it, but little evidence. So we thought we'd try and address that point. And then in terms of, I guess, our philosophy here at Thread and our work is, very much relationship fundraisers at heart. Our starting point is we're excited about the possibilities of AI because it's going to help deliver better experiences for supporters. And that's what gets us excited about it, is that what does it open up for us to do and help fundraisers with. So that was then led us on to our hypothesis. Was basically most people can't tell the difference. And even if they can tell the difference, they don't necessarily downgrade the quality. So I guess our thinking is, if AI can draft letters at least as good as the sector average, then fundraisers should embrace it as a tool, not to replace humans, but to free up time for the human parts of stewardship. So I hope that makes sense. In terms of what we did, obviously, we had two parts to the survey. Can people tell the difference between AI and human written thank yous? And we'll give them 5 thank yous for that. And then we'll give them 3 letters to rate out of 10. And do people rate human or AI thank you letters higher? So our controls, there was 2 control letters. So there was 2 letters that everybody saw, just to give a baseline across all survey responses. There was some subtle clues in those letters that they were human and AI written to make detection slightly easier. It was interesting. A lot of people very confidently said, "Oh, there's M dashes in the letter, therefore it must be AI." Actually, I think at least 3 of the human letters also included dashes, but we standardized them so they all look the same. But people do use dashes in the real world too, and not just AI. So that wasn't quite the tell that a lot of people thought it was. I guess a couple of limitations with the survey. Obviously, there was no overall context. We didn't share the appeal that it was actually in response to with you. If there was photos on the letter or anything else, we couldn't include that. So, we need to take everything with this with a pinch of salt, but hopefully it's quite a rigorous process and helpful to people. So what we did, we created the survey. We used, in our spirit of AI, we used a tool called Replit to create the survey. We asked for things like years of experience to see if that was improved detection. So would people who've been fundraising longer spot things easier. We set up, as I said, about the controlled and random, and then asked, and we used AI. We used a few different versions, 2 different versions. We used a very blank, basic version of AI, of ChatGPT, to create a thank you letter. And we created a custom GPT project called the Gratitude Machine. And we trained that on deep research about gratitude. So we got Google Gemini and we got ChatGPT. We give it a prompt to say, can you tell us about best practice in nonprofit fundraising? Tell us about psychology. Tell us what the latest research is doing. And we trained the GPT on that research to try and help do it. And then we just asked a very simple prompt: write a heartfelt thank you letter based on the attached appeal. So the results, let's see if that polls right. How did we do? So, drum roll, Basically, overall fundraisers perform no better than they would have by randomly picking a response. So what we did to test this, we created a Monte Carlo simulation, which is just basically running the probabilities 10,000 times to see what the range of responses would be. We did up the randomness from 50-50 to 75-25 for the controls. And as you can see, was slightly more people got 5 out of 5 than you would from the simulated, but more people got 0 or 1 as well. So overall, basically, no difference than picking by random. Again, put in comments, chat, if that surprises you, or if you've got any questions on that, and very happy to answer them. So the next part was the fundraising experience, and that had no impact. So actually, interestingly, the people with the least fundraising experience slowed slightly better. It wasn't statistically significant at all, but yeah, it was quite interesting that actually how long you've been fundraising made no difference. I mentioned the 3 models. It was quite interesting to see, and you know, I was relatively pleased with this in the sense that the very basic use of AI was the one that most people thought was AI. But then the gratitude machine was lower, and the human obviously lower again, but actually no higher than it would have been by random. Because with the probabilities we assigned, basically 3 out of 5 should have been the average, and that's very much where it came out. In terms of ratings, I think this is where probably the biggest shock and surprise would be, because the AI but beat significantly the human letters. In fact, scored a whole point on average higher than the human written letters, which I was really surprised at. And again, interestingly, the trained AI did perform slightly better than the basic AI. So yeah, that was probably the slightly quite shocked to see such a difference in it. And I thought, you know, hand on heart, the human written letters, I would all rate them above average myself personally. I thought they were all well written and personalized and trying to tell stories. So I was surprised by this finding. But yeah, statistically robust, and you know, from nearly 300 responses, it came out. So let's show you some examples from this. So 85% of people thought this was the letter that was most people thought was written by AI, and they were right. But interestingly, the fact that it was written by AI didn't affect its score. It still scored 7.5 out of 10. So people didn't, even though they thought it was AI, they didn't necessarily score things lower. 73% of people thought this letter was written by AI, and they were wrong. It was actually no, written by humans, sorry, and they're wrong. And I think it's the lack of M dashes called people out. You know, we did say on the gratitude machine not to include M dashes. It still did at times, but we knew that could potentially be a tell. And actually, this letter didn't have any M dashes, so people thought it was human, and people rated it really highly, but it was actually written by AI. This was the highest rated thank you letter. And again, it was written by AI, and 43% of people thought that. And again, you can see no M dashes within it. It was rated 7.7 out of 10. And then the highest rated human thank you letter was the one from Jerry Green Dog. So well done to Liz and the team there. Really nice, lovely letter that they sent. But still, interestingly, 42% of people thought it was written by AI, even though it was human. So you can see the sort of differences between it. So we're going to move on to recommendations and what people think. So I'm going to start with prompting, really, because I think this is probably, I guess, one of the keys of using AI effectively. We only used a very basic prompt for this project, but we did train a custom GBT to try and improve performance and results. And it did, which was really pleasing. I think learning how to prompt properly is going to be a really important skill for fundraisers in the coming years. And I think there's 3 levels. So I'm going to show you what I mean by this just in the context of this project, really. So basically, we used a very basic prompt: write a heartfelt thank you letter to the attached appeal, and that's what it produced. I guess the next step, an intermediate prompt, might have been something like: use best practices in charity copywriting and gratitude techniques to develop a heartfelt and compelling thank you letter for the attached appeal. Apply support-friendly language, write an easy-to-read language and avoid jargon, and put something in about your tone as well. So it'd be really interesting again in the chat for you to share, how do you prompt, and what prompts do you use, and have you got any successful prompts? The final prompt, I'm going to show you some examples from this, is more in advanced, and it uses a prompting technique called role, context, and output to give more detail. So I love creating these fundraising avatars, these made up staff members, and I come up with silly names, a bit like Toast of London, if anyone watches that. So I created Tallulah Blenkinsop for this prompt, and she's a master fundraising copywriter, 20 years experience. She's got a reputation for gratitude thank you letters. She channels legendary copywriters and uses copywriting frameworks. She uses intrigue and hooks to make people feel good about living. She applies psychological and philanthropic research on identity, values, and love to make sure supporters feel valued. So you can see the difference between that write a heartfelt thank you letter to here's a role, and this is the context. You've been asked to write 2 versions to supporters who've donated to the attached appeal. So we're trying to do more than just a generic thank you letter. There's a group of people, supporters might have lived experience or know someone with lived experience. They're likely to be more empathetic and high in terms of personality on openness and agreeableness. They really love stories. Whereas the second part of the letter 2 might be for more professionals, people who work in the health and legal profession, and that might have clients or patients who've experienced catastrophic injuries. This group is more high and conscientious and appeal to that professional persona. Stories are still important, but should be backed by facts. So you can see, and you'll have your own versions of this, and you need to create your own prompt in this style. But you can see the richer the prompt, hopefully the better the output. And then we give them a task. For each group, write 5 potential opening paragraphs to a thank you letter, and then use a mix of surprise, intrigue, and gratitude. Apply your experience, use the research. You can also lift this further by using something called JSON, or JSON, which is a coding language to put your prompts in an even more formal structure. But the idea of this is again one of the things that I think AI is powerful, is it can instantly create 5, 10, 20 different versions. And rather than you trying to come up with it, get you started, and you can then go in and say, oh, I like that one, or I like a bit of that, and I like a bit of that. You can pick and mix and choose. So this was based on one of the appeals from the Day One Traumas appeal from the project. And then here's 5. You can see this really leans in on the emotion, the identity, that shared humanity, affirming compassion, creating an immediate heart connection. So you can see, every hug, every gentle word, how fragile life can be. You're not alone. Someone cares enough. A user's walk. Well, actually, some of the people with lived experience might not be able to walk. So that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate language. So you'd want to train it not to use things like that in the future. But you can see how that appeals to that personality. You might hate these ones because you're not that personality, but it should hopefully appeal to that group. Whereas the more professional one, facts opens with a fact every 20 minutes. It costs just 32.36 for a caseworker. It shatters that, so it's a whole mix. And what you can do then is say, can you take the first couple of parts of this one, also add in a bit more here, stories here, and then you might end up with a final thank you letter like this. And this is for the openness and conscientious one. And then I also don't take it as it is, always edit it, sleep on it, change it. But that whole process is probably taking you 5-10 minutes to do that and iterate that through. So hopefully that is interesting. The other bit that I wanted to share is around automation, because I think that's the other big area AI can really bring advantages. And I've been testing and trialing some automation tools, and basically I think it's now possible, and I'm just got my first guinea pig who's going to be testing this at Christmas, for you to basically create a process a bit like this, where you could scan in your donation form, which then emails it to a secure shared folder. AI can then read the scan. It can add the details of the donation on the onto a spreadsheet or direct to your CRM. It can, if it's got a credit card payment, it could process that credit card payment via Stripe's virtual terminal using the API. So you don't have to manually process anything or do it. You want checks and balances in. Automatically add it to your CRM or prepare a file for import. Write a personalized thank you letter based on the donation form or the letter that's been sent in. Possibly you can reference your CRM history if your CRM has got that functionality. And then it writes and drafts a thank you letter for the fundraiser to check, print, and send. Can do all of that in under 5 minutes. Imagine the time that you can free up and save by using advanced automation like this and processes like this. You're sort of saving time, you're saving money, and you're actually delivering higher rated outputs at the end to then free you up for the human touch. So there's so much possibilities around this. This is the sort of thing that gets me excited, but it gets me excited for the next part, because what it does is frees up time, and that time could be used for the human touch. And I mentioned Day One Trauma Support earlier. I've been working with them for nearly 3 years as their part-time director of fundraising and comms, and they've got an incredible team who just amazing at gratitude and thanking, and have created an amazing culture of gratitude that shines through, and they put that first and the human touch first, the things that AI will never be able to replicate. So I just wanted to share the examples. They've got hundreds of these. We keep a folder of all the nice responses we get from supporters thanking us for our thank yous. And I always say that's one of the key things. If supporters are starting to thank you for your thank yous, you're probably doing something right. So here's some of their great stewardship tools and examples. You've got frame certificate to a young supporter, a school here, handwritten Christmas card and certificate, and people post about these things on social media when they see it. Delighted to receive the lovely thank you card. Thank you to everyone made a difference. You've got a nice thing here. Thank you so much for my card. Such a nice touch. Oh, and look what a relative has decided to give me a check for £2,000. And it happens because I mentioned the great stewardship that I received. So it pays off as well. Sent a little thank you and good luck to a supporter through the post, a bag of squashies, posting it on LinkedIn saying what an incredible experience and thanking. We've got volunteers to crochet hearts and create little personal things that we could send to certain donors as well, which went down really well for certain donor types. Again, just handwritten cards, just saying we've got a lovely message and really appreciate it. Thank you for the card. I can't remember the last time I got something handwritten when it was on my birthday, so it was lovely to get this. And it goes on and on. One of the things I always love, if someone tells you they moved house, it's a really good sign that they're a committed supporter. So as well as updating the database, what Zoe did, who's fabulous support care lead, she sent congrats on your new home card, and that went down really well, and just basically said really appreciated, going to continue supporting. I think they went on to actually increase their regular giving just by this human touch, these outreaches and things. And Kat is a whole case study in itself of just amazing stewardship. Created a thank you card for the kindest, most grateful charity. Can't wait to do more fundraising. Really developed a personal relationship with Kat and grown that to get a family involved. And she's raised thousands and thousands of pounds for the charity, and you can follow it all through. What would have been a one-off has now become sustained, regular support. And I appreciate people might say, well, that's just anecdotal, Craig. Does it actually make a difference? Have to raise more money? Well, this is picture from their first thank you day. Increases quadrupled in 3 years, and that culture of gratitude has been at the heart of it. And this is a small, started off with just 2.5 full-time fundraisers. It's now up to 10 across the fundraising and comms team. But they've baked it in. It's the most important thing, and that what gets measured gets managed. And we measure the gratitude and the human touches and things, and we know it makes a difference. And we're committed to continuing to do those personal touches, those handwritten cards, as we scale. So we wanted to show that nuance between AI's got some amazing stuff, but there's some stuff that humans definitely win at as well. So in terms of future research and a summary, I think it's fair to say we're still in the early stages of understanding AI and what it can and can't do to help with our fundraising. So, we've got some ideas for future research. We could include appeals and actual letters used. So it's not just that blank page. It's got the photos in there. It's got the other bit. It might even have like a handwritten note on it. Actually testing it with supporters and not with fundraisers. And then looking at the impact on things like engagement and lift devices like handwritten notes, post-it notes, GIFs like we showed you from day one. I'd love to get some of the world's best fundraising copywriters to put their letters against the best of AI, and see if these results hold up. And even looking, further to like a real-world split test, look at income, loyalty, etc., of supporters who receive AI-generated content versus existing human content versus the additional extras you can do by using AI to free up time. So I think there's a few interesting directions we could take around that. Quick drink just to get onto the summary. Really, I think my feeling is using AI should not be an either or question. With the right prompting, I think we've shown clearly it's capable of producing above average content, and there's all this huge opportunity around automating processes, but it shouldn't be seen as a replacement. It's about freeing up time. We know how overworked lots of fundraisers are. We know how stressful. We see people leaving the profession. We've got a real crisis. So I think AI can play a part in solving that, so we can invest in stewardship and gratitude and those lovely pieces, picking up the phone, etc., that we know can make all the difference. And I think combining those both parts together has the potential to be an unstoppable force for good. So one of my favorite quotes on gratitude is this, where Henri Frederick Amiel, he says, "Thankfulness is the beginning of gratitude. Gratitude is the completion of thankfulness. Thankfulness may consist merely of words, whereas gratitude is shown in acts." So where I think we've got to, or where my head is at, is that AI can help with thankfulness, but gratitude requires the human touch, and will continue. I hope that's been helpful. Hope you found that interesting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that people may have. But thanks for taking part. If anybody's got any feedback or any suggestions for future topics, we'd love to hear it. He's all about thread fundraising, so an agency that stitches together, hopefully, the agility of working with a freelancer with a scale and breadth of an agency. And we're really looking at automations, developing campaigns, and working with charities to help deliver great gratitude. So we'll stop my share there. Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to look in the chat. Amy, any particular questions?
I'm trying to look at the chat now.
I've seen Jenny's thing about the MIT.
Yeah.
I think if you read the full survey, it's it depends, again, more nuanced picture. Everything that I've done here hasn't been ChatGPT doing by itself. It's been prompted and trained from our own original thoughts. So we are still doing the thinking. But it was a really interesting research piece. But I think it's been slightly misrepresented in the media to almost portray that black and white thing, and the truth is somewhat more nuanced, I think. Any other questions, Amy? I see from Barbara.
I think a lot of people are sharing.
Yeah, I think if we use it, you just need to make sure your data protection's up. There's nothing in GDPR that stops you using AI. I'd be very careful about making sure you tick the box that says do not train the AI, but I think every AI now makes that very easy because of that fear of data being used to train. But you're kidding yourself if you think commercial organizations aren't using AI to process your details and data and things in that way. So you need to make sure that your data policy is up to date and relevant, but there's nothing in GDPR that stops you using AI to process things. It's been done in many other sectors.
There's another question from Jess. What is your view on sending thanking by post? If you send an AI generated letter or just general thank you letter, what's the value?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank by post. But if you're doing it using AI, hopefully that time you save by doing that, you can write a little extra thank you on, or you can put a post-it note, or you can do something to elevate it and lift it. We always encourage to thank by post. Where possible, ideally you'd be writing handwritten cards, but if you've got 1,000 responses to a Christmas appeal, that's probably not going to be feasible. So you need to think about where, one of the things we always encourage people to do is map out a stewardship plan for different appeals or campaigns or across the year. Who gets those extra touches and when do you use the generic thank you letter? And hopefully we've shown here AI is at least as good, if not better, than humans at that. And then use some of the other techniques, picking up the phone, videos, thanking days, etc., to be the wow on top, the cherry on top of the cake, so to speak, to help elevate that. Rebecca, yeah, we will be sharing this. There was a link also. We've created a blueprint with lots of resources about gratitude and thanking from some of our favourite research papers and from Fundraisers with Maya and Sophie and other resources as well. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand, and it'd be lovely to hear from you. Thanks, Lisa. We'll make sure that's all shared. Yeah. Hi, Karen. Hope you're well.
Hi there. Good, thanks. Yeah, and thanks for doing this. It was fascinating. Any tips for kind of managing upwards in terms of, I often get kind of pushback on the nuances of thanking. It's just like, get it out, get it automated, get it all the same, push it out. And I'm like, we really need to take some time over this thanking. Yeah. Any persuasion top tips?
Well, I think it's one of the key things. I think for me, it's trying to demonstrate that we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it because it's a nice thing and the right thing to do, which is really important. It actually helps us raise more money, and actually every donor that we can keep is saving us on acquisition, increases lifetime value. So you could try and make that rational case to find out. We've probably all been there with finance directors who say, well, why are we spending money on banking and why are we doing this and that? But I think it's trying to win the hearts and minds about why this matters, and it's trying to show that it's not just a nice to do, it's an essential. I mean, it's that absolute fundamental of fundraising. You know, there's so much evidence around the uplift in quick thank yous and personal thank yous. If I was to say there's a magic one that I can raise you an extra 20% next year, and actually what that is being great at gratitude, and it's not going to really cost you anything apart from some staff time and some nice maybe printed cards and other pieces, or picking up the phone more. You know, people would probably pay a consultant tens of thousands of pounds, but actually you can do this for free. And if you're not doing it yet, it's the biggest, simplest win that you can make as a fundraising team, is just improve and elevate your gratitude, and do all those extra touches. You know, day one, you know, they're 2 or 3 of the best fundraisers I've had the pleasure of working with in terms of just embedding that gratitude in. And it's no coincidence that their income skyrocketed, and people are doing things year after year after year because of the way they're looked after and the way that they're stewarded and thanks. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Karen?
Yeah, no, it's helpful. And I think it's just helpful. Sometimes I feel a bit of a lone voice in it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I should keep doing this. I should keep banging the thanking / gratitude drum. I'm on the right track.
I feel your pain though, Karen, because yeah, I've been there, and I have lost that argument, sadly, on a couple of occasions. But you know, I think grounding it in the money, I think sometimes can be the thing that gets it over the line. Yeah. Thanks, Karen.
That's great. Thank you.
Hi, Julia.
Just a bit of a follow-up question on that. How would you propose kind of thanking kind of those that are more regular givers, so kind of those that might have a monthly direct debit?
Yeah. So there's some interesting research, again, it's referenced in the blueprint from the Jen Shang at the Institute of Sustainable Philanthropy. And they found that how you thank people who've been given for more than a year needs to be grounded in slightly different language than those people who've been given under a year, or a certain cut-off. And she's got some very good advice and ideas on the language to use around that. And I think the other thing there is donors want to be seen and known. So, you know, sending them an anniversary card or an anniversary message, this is what you've achieved over the last year. I think that becomes really important for regular givers, and giving them some inside information, showing the impact, making them feel, you know, bringing them closer to the organisation, and appealing to that identity that makes them want to support your cause. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thanks, Julia. Great. Any final questions before we wrap up? No. So we'll follow up with slides and information. We're going to write up a report based on what we presented today. But thank you for taking part. Do share it with colleagues, the results and findings. Do comment on LinkedIn, and if you found today helpful, and keep in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thanks for your time today. Take care, everyone.